Welcome once again to Tales Upon a Time, and this tale is called Fairy Door Fantasy. This is a story for Freya and her friends, and it's about the magic of fairy doors. It was Saturday morning, and Freya was sitting on a rug on the floor, making her own beautifully designed bead bracelets. She loved choosing the right beads with different shapes and colours, then threading them very carefully and tying a knot at the end. Freya was wearing one on a wrist that she'd made earlier. Rain was tumbling down outside. In fact, not just tumbling, but pouring, and so she wasn't able to go outside to play with her friends. But it was lovely just sitting on the rug on the floor, threading beads and just thinking. You see, Freya has a great imagination and loves making up her own stories. She looked up at the ceiling. Shadows danced with the light, and as she looked lower, she saw the pictures on the walls. She looked lower still and saw the chairs and a small table with a coffee mug on it and a glass of lemonade. And then her eyes went lower still to the skirting board, which went all the way around the edge of the floor. And as she looked a little closer, she saw a little tiny door, which she'd never noticed before. It was light blue with small gold hinges and a silver door handle. There were two tiny panes of glass. Freya rubbed her eyes. She couldn't believe what she was seeing. So she carefully put any loose beads back in the box and then crawled over to look more closely at the little door in the skirting board. She noticed a small piece of paper neatly rolled up, and it had a lovely perfume of rose petals, and it was tied with a bow of silver thread. And Freya unrolled it, and it said, "Thank you for coming to our fairy front door. We'd love to meet you in our fairyland. If you'd like to meet us, just close your eyes, blow a wish from the palm of your hand, and whisper, 'I wish.'" Well, Freya knew about fairies from stories she'd read, or had had read to her. And so she opened her palm, closed her eyes tightly, blew and whispered, "I wish." She heard the tinkling of bells, felt a gentle breeze on her face, and heard the hinges of a door opening, and when she opened her eyes again, she was there in fairyland. Freya looked around and noticed she was now the same size as the fairies. 6 of them had come towards her and said together, "Welcome to our magical wonderland, Freya." And one fairy, dressed in a shiny dress with red and pink wings, said, "I'm Luna, and I paint pictures. Frost pictures on windows, moving pictures of raindrops running down the window pane, and pictures made from the clouds in the sky." Another fairy said, "And I'm Aurora, and I'm a painter of dreams. You can travel the world, travel through time, travel through space in your dreams." Luna held Freya's hand, smiled and said, "There's plenty of time for you to get to know us, Freya. Why not have a look around and see what you can see in our land?" Well, it was like walking into a land of light and colour. Sunbeams shone through the trees, and thin slivers of light lit up the leaves like miniature spotlights. There were toadstools, some with their own doors and windows, and Freya thought they must be the fairies' homes. And one large toadstool home had its own chimney. Butterflies danced and moved in circles, painting pictures in the air. And there were other homes made from onions and pumpkins. Beautiful pink flowers hung from the branches of the trees, and as Freya watched, they too joined in with the butterfly dance. She listened to the most beautiful sounds as the butterflies and flowers joined together to dance their own special Freya welcome. Luna joined Freya. "Do you like it here?" "Like it? It's the most magical place I've seen. Right out of Storyland," said Freya. She spotted a very large tree trunk with a carved face and a wooden slatted door. "Where does that go, Luna?" I'll lead the way, said Aurora. Aurora led the way with Freya and the fairies walking behind her. They all danced a little dance as they reached the door. Aurora pushed the door open, and there were steps leading down a little way. There was the most beautiful smell of rose petals, and then, in front of them, a large table with 12 chairs all around the edge. And on the table were glasses, plates, and a tray full of delicious-looking fruits. Apples, pears, apricots, bananas, and some small cakes with icing on top. What are they called? Asked Freya. Oh, they're just called fairy cakes. And when you have a fairy cake in your own land, you can think of us, laughed Luna. Freya looked closely at the fairy cakes and noticed on top of the icing were the smallest of rosebuds you've ever seen decorating them. Freya tucked into a banana and an apple, and then took a fairy cake. It was soft and tasty. It just melted in her mouth. Have another one, said Luna. Freya took another cake and asked if it would be all right for her to take the 2 rosebuds back with her to her own land. Of course, said Luna. Then every time you look at them, you can think of us. Luna then said, We love that pretty bracelet on your wrist. We've never seen one like it before. I make them, said Freya. I'll make some for you all and bring them with me when we meet next time. That would be amazing, said Luna. Freya asked the fairies lots of questions like, What games do you play? What do you do when you visit my land? And do you dream when you go to sleep? Questions like that. Well, time seemed to fly by, and soon Luna said, It's time for you to go back to your own land now, Freya. We'll soon leave another message for you, and you'll be able to come here again, if you'd like to. If I'd like to, I'd really, really, really love to, said Freya. And with that, they went back up the few steps, opened the door, and made their way out into the open. Close your eyes, Freya. Open your palm, blow, and say, I wish. I wish. And in a second, Freya was back in her own home, sitting on the rug, back to being her own self again. Next, her mum came in through the door. Are you all right, Freya? You've been very quiet making your bracelets. Mum was carrying a baking tray and she said, Look what I've made. I was looking through an old recipe book and the page fell open onto how to make fairy cakes. So I've made some. And there, on the tray, were 12 fairy cakes and they were decorated with icing and, on top, rosebuds. Freya said, Wow, and opened up the palm of her hand. And inside were the 2 tiny miniature rosebuds which the fairies had given her. I don't remember you having those before, said Mum. No, some fairies gave them to me. Her mum smiled. Of course they did, dear, she said. But Freya knew it wasn't a dream and really looked forward to meeting her fairy friends again. Would you like to try a cake now, Freya? Oh, yes, please, Mum. They look lovely. So she carefully took off the rosebud and put it alongside the 2 much smaller ones given to her by her new friends and put them very carefully onto a glass shelf. Freya licked the cream, began to eat the smooth, soft cake and thought of Luna, Aurora and the other fairies. She thought she heard the tinkling of bells and felt a breeze on her face. You're daydreaming again, said her mum with a smile. Oh, they're lovely, lovely cakes, Mum. Thank you. I know that fairies would love your fairy cakes too. Oh, look, said her mum. The sun's coming out. If you wanted to, you could go outside with your friends and play. Thanks, Mum. And she skipped past the small door in the skirting board, out through the front door to meet up with her friends outside. There were some butterflies flying around in small circles. Beautiful pink flowers clung to the tree's branches. Hello, Freya, it's lovely to see you. Have you been playing indoors? Yes, I have, said Freya, and I went through a fairy door. Oh, that must have been fun, said her friends. We wish we could go through a fairy door. Freya smiled. Maybe you will one day, and who knows, maybe one day they all will. Thank you.